What's happening, guys? Welcome to episode 3 of Whisper It Loudly. Already, and it feels like it's a bit of a proud moment because this is, 6 years in the making. We've got 3. Didn't think we'd get 1 out, but we've got 3 out now. So we're 3 episodes in, so a round of applause for us. I'm Jurgen Jarrett-Bryan, Channel 4 News sports correspondent and also founder of production company Black Academic Productions. And I'm joined by the big man, Darren Lewis, associate editor of the Daily Mirror.
Assistant.
You know what? I never knew what associate. What is associate editor?
It's a long story.
Okay,
It would bore the fears.
Let's see. Assistant editor of the Daily Mirror and also co-presenter
of Super Sunday Match Day.
There you go.
Right? But I was going to say, should we mention that big man's not here?
Can I just tell the people who is here first of all? Is that all right?
Feel free.
And as you mentioned, the big man, Hugh Wozencroft, isn't with us this week. He's unwell, so get well soon, Hugh. He'll be back next week, I'm sure. I feel like I'm under pressure now. I've been presenting for like 20 years, but now I'm in the big man's shoes. I feel like the heat is on to deliver, but let's do our best. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please do so. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, and we are on Twitter as well. Share, comment, and do all of that. Support. Thank you for the people that have been supporting so far. The response has been positive, roundly, so big up all you guys out there. Let's get into it. So you know what we do on this podcast. We talk sports, we talk politics, we talk arts and culture, and a little bit of foolishness at the end as well. Let's start with the sport and the football. Big game on the weekend, just gone. Liverpool a 1-1 draw at home to Manchester City. The title race is on. I think it's fair to say the eventual winners from Sunday were Arsenal. But before we get to Arsenal, if indeed we get there, does it feel like an opportunity missed for Liverpool, considering they were at home? They seem to, over the course of 90 minutes, have the better of the match, although City did have some really good chances. Do you feel like they will be kicking themselves for not trying to bag those 3 points in a home fixture against a rival?
Yes and no. Luis Diaz did have some great chances to score, and he blew them. But on the flip side, they were without their first choice keeper, first choice right back, first choice striker, because everybody accepts that Jota is a guy who takes his opportunities. Luis Diaz having a bit of an off day, but Jota not being available was a big miss for Liverpool, and still they bossed the best side in the Premier League for 5 of the last 6 seasons. And there were 3, 2 of the defensive players. One was from the academy and playing at right back, another one from the academy playing at centre half, another one who normally plays centre half and right back was playing at left back, and still Liverpool were able to restrict Erling Haaland, restrict Kevin De Bruyne. So for me, I don't really see any negatives about the weekend. I think Liverpool level on points with Arsenal. The goal difference for Arsenal was superior and the defence obviously slightly better. But Arsenal do have to go to Manchester City and nobody wins at Manchester City.
I think I want to talk a little bit about Klopp and what he did in that match. Because as you mentioned, he was missing some key players. I think I'm right in saying bar Grealish, City were pretty much full strength. Everyone was available to play. I know Diaz didn't play. I don't know if he was on the bench or if he was.
But then you could argue that the loss of Edison through injury, that really.
But going into the game, they had all their guns.
Yeah.
And for Liverpool, as you mentioned, to not only match but in large parts better them, I thought was impressive. And it spoke to. So I think Liverpool got a bit of a PR problem, and what I mean by that is I don't think that Liverpool fans and the club realise how much the whole "this means more" rhetoric and we're a special kind of club really irks other football fans.
Really?
Yeah, this idea that somehow Liverpool have this special aura and Liverpool have this amazing atmosphere that no other club ever has, I think is a little bit grating for other fans. However, what I will say is what I think Klopp has engendered very, very well is this sense of a spirit that is clearly palpable when you go to Anfield. It's no coincidence that the best team in the land have struggled to go to Anfield and get wins. So whilst I think that it is quite grating hearing this from Liverpool, this idea that we're somehow superior in that, no, we know it means a lot to you, but for us, it means a lot more. I don't like that. And a lot of fans don't like that. I have to also accept that there's something that Klopp has built at Liverpool beyond just great players that enables him to have, in these games when they have players out, some kind of force field that enables him to get a point against a team like Manchester City. You look at me like you don't agree.
Well, no, it's not that I don't agree. It's that on the one hand you said it great, but then on the other hand you accepting that it is true.
Not that it's true, but I think there's something. I'm imagining there's something about Anfield that clearly teams struggle with, but I think you guys play on it a little bit too much.
Well, during the 80s and the early part of the 90s, it was true that a lot of opposition teams, players were beaten, fans were resigned to losing the points once they got to Anfield. There's this special sign, this is Anfield, there was that special atmosphere, there were those special European nights. Obviously, Liverpool lost their way during the 90s and they kind of got it back in the cup competitions, but it never was quite there in the league until the arrival of Jurgen Klopp. And now we're back. Liverpool as a club are back to a situation where psychologically a lot of teams are beaten before they get there. And it grates on opposition fans because it's true. Every set of opposition fans and players, they want to go there and disprove it. But City, listen, a lot of people expected City to go there and really... This is the year. They looked at the two team sheets. They thought to themselves, this is going to be the time they could do it. And they couldn't do it. And why? Because that culture is back at Liverpool. That desire, the hunger, the refusal to lose, all of the ingredients that make a squad under a special manager that special. Everything came to bear on that day. It was a really, really good performance considering all the players that were unavailable to Liverpool.
I think a special shout out to Virgil van Dijk needs to be said, because I think that for somebody that had most of his backline missing and his goalkeeper, for him to marshal that defence and not only perform himself, but pretty much carry the rest of the back five as well, I think deserves a lot. Against the best attack in the league, I think deserves a lot of praise. And we saw how he stepped up in the cup final a couple of weeks ago. Where would you stand on who is leading your race, just internally as a club, for player of the year between him and Salah? Salah's numbers are phenomenal as well. He's been out for a while. Who do you think of the two is winning that race?
I think Van Dijk's back to being where he was before the injury that he picked up in a Merseyside derby a few years ago when he collided with Jordan Pickford. Lots of people said he would never be the same again. Lots of people looking at kind of sideways at him. But he is not just a fantastic player, but he's a leader. And by that, I always think leaders, real leaders, are players that make the other players alongside them better. Maybe the underachieving players, they help them to have a bit of confidence in themselves. The younger players who might be overawed by the occasion, you help them to believe in themselves. Van Dijk is that guy. Terry was that guy for Chelsea. Ledley King was that guy for Tottenham. Alderweireld came in and he was that guy. Saliba's that guy for Arsenal. Van Dijk is Ruben Diaz is that guy. I would argue other people might say it's John Stones, but that just tells you all about the number of leaders that exist at City at the moment, and that's why they're so good. But Van Dijk is that guy, and he's a big, big reason why Liverpool are still confident of winning the league and maybe even pulling off the quadruple.
Let's talk City now. Is it fair for me to say that despite getting results and despite still being in the thick of the title race and probably being most people's favourites for the title still, City aren't still quite right? Something doesn't quite feel... No. I'm watching, I'm thinking to myself, something just isn't quite working for me, but yet they're getting the results. Is that no?
But listen, since December, it's 13 games undefeated in the Premier League. Wolves, 10 wins, 3 draws, and... this is a stage of the season where it doesn't have to be pretty. You just have to win. You can play well and lose, and you can go back to being also rounds, or you can be like a City, who basically say, these are the games we have to win. And we accept that we could go to an exceptional team like Liverpool and draw. That's okay, because we are still the kind of side that can find a way to win in difficult moments. And we know that at home, nobody's coming to beat us. So for me, I don't see any chinks in that City armour. I just think they were made to look a little bit inferior to the exceptional side they normally are because Liverpool was so good.
Last time we'll see Klopp versus Guardiola in the Premier League at least. Did you shed a tear, be honest?
Let me ask you, because you're an Arsenal fan. Obviously, now you're loving life at the moment under Arteta.
Listen, we're just doing what we do. We're just doing what we do. You know what I mean?
Are you going to miss
that rivalry?
Yeah.
Yes, in as far as you've got the two best managers in world football that have built probably the two best club sides in world football in the last 4 or 5 years for sure.
Real Madrid? Ancelotti?
I think there's an argument there. But I think Liverpool at their peak over the last 3 or 4 years beats the best Real Madrid in the last 2 or 3 years. So that's why I would lean more towards Liverpool. But yeah, you could argue Real Madrid are in that trio if you like then. But I think you've got two world-class managers that off the field of play do nothing for me. But I think what they've built in terms of on the field of play, there's been some great games, high quality, high caliber games. They've both improved players. They've both gone about it in a different way. I would have liked to know a little bit more Needle, but that's just the kind of petty person that I am. It's a bit too nicey for me.
I used to like the Needle when I was younger and all of the backbiting
I'm still
and all
petty.
that. No,
I'm still petty.
I just think the older I get now, the more I like the fact that we talk about the football with the two teams. The young players who are coming through, the leaders like Van Dijk, the goal scorers like Salah and Diaz and Jota and Nunes, the way that they've reconfigured the midfield at Liverpool, and still there isn't a dip in quality. I look at City and Haaland is akin to the Terminator. De Bruyne is probably the best and most beautiful creative midfielder, technically speaking, in world football. I look at that goalkeeper, Edison's fantastic. You look at the spine of the team and it's all high caliber. They seem to just regenerate. They win things like they did last season, the treble. They come out, they win the first 6 games of the season. The hunger's not gone. Why do you need to talk about pettiness between managers?
I'm petty. I want a little bit of beef in the press conference. I want a little bit of on the touchline. You get back in your box. No, you get. I want a little bit
irony.
of that.
We talked about this last week in the podcast last week about boxing, and I always increasingly think with boxing, you hear all of that noise, but ultimately, when it comes to the main event, you're underwhelmed, and that doesn't happen. Well, it hasn't happened in this rivalry so far with Klopp and Guardiola, because every time they meet, they deliver. Whether one side wins, the other side wins, or it's a draw like it was at the weekend, and all of us are utterly
always high,
entertained.
yeah.
The quality is always high. I would rather have that than have two managers trash talking, but be let down by the main event.
It's not an either or for me. Just on that, because what I find interesting as well about this rivalry between the two managers is you look at sport. The best athletes have always kind of got the best out of themselves, but also because they've been driven. So you look at Messi, Ronaldo, you look at Nadal, Federer, you look at Michael Jordan, and many rivals that he saw them off. They're pushed by the best, and I just wonder how it will affect Guardiola next season. He said it himself. He said, "Look, he said words to the effect of we don't win all these titles without Liverpool.
Yeah.
They've pushed us to be the best." Do you think it will impact him? Because, Arteta's my guy and I think he's the next one coming, but he's not Klopp. Let's have it right. He's not Klopp.
It's funny you say that. You say he's not Klopp, but if you took Liverpool out of the equation, Arsenal, I've got a better defence than City.
Yeah.
They scored more goals than City. And actually, Arsenal were the team to catch at the moment.
True.
So if you didn't have Liverpool, it would be Arteta, and the subplot to that, of course, is that it's the apprentice who is ahead of the master.
True.
So it will be a different kind of rivalry
That's true.
next time around. And given how young Arteta is as well, and how he's reconfigured that side, and the fact that there are so many young players in the team, what I would imagine Guardiola has over Arteta is that he's got kids like you would not believe coming through on a conveyor belt. Whereas Arsenal, I'm not quite sure the calibre of the kids coming through from the academy is what it used to be.
Maybe isn't there.
Exactly. So I think the rivalry will still be there. I think others will come along as well into the picture. Unai Emery is a serious guy. I don't think Villa are a serious contender yet. I think they need to get a lot of quality in. Spurs are coming over the horizon at the moment. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Spurs. And Manchester United, they cannot possibly be as bad next season.
They actually can. But we'll get there. Just finally on this one, if you look at the title race overall, how do you see it now? A week on from...
Can't call it.
So you feel the same way now as you felt before this Liverpool-Man City game?
Yeah, I do think Liverpool will win it, but
Oh, you do?
I do.
Okay.
I do, because I just think the stars are aligning for Liverpool. I think
Stars are aligning.
I really do.
Something
The final,
tangible.
yeah.
That doesn't mean anything. The stars are aligning.
right, okay, all
Give me
right.
something. With City, you can say the experience is there.
He was nice to me. You.
I'm just saying, the stars are. You can all say that. The stars are aligning.
All right, let me put it this way.
That's why I'm like Liverpool fans. You not annoy us. It's all this whimsical talk about this means more. The
But
stars
I
are
love
coming.
the romance around it. I think that's
Romance.
what football is. We grew up on passion. We grew up on getting excited, being let down, sometimes in
Romance is
tears.
great, but give me some tangible reasons.
Well, I'm giving you the stars aligning.
That's not a tangible reason.
Okay, I'll tell you why. I think when you look at the number of players that Liverpool have lost in the last 2 months, and still they're there. They said that Liverpool wouldn't be able to cope without a slipped a second time there. They said that Liverpool wouldn't be able to cope with Salah. He was away for 8 games. They won 6 of them. They scored 22 goals. They said that Liverpool wouldn't be able to cope without Alisson in goal, and Keller has been fantastic, helped them almost single-handedly with the saves that he made to win the Carabao Cup. They said that Liverpool wouldn't be able to beat billion-pound Chelsea in the Cup itself, and they finished the game, Liverpool, with 3 or 4 of their teenagers from the academy. And even in big games like this, I have to admit, I thought I'd have to watch it through my fingers when I saw that Bradley was playing at right back and Darrell Quanton was playing at centre-half against Haaland and De Bruyne, and Liverpool managed to find a way not to lose. And the numbers all suggest the home record is going to be a key factor in Liverpool winning silverware this season, because whatever happens away from home, Liverpool will put teams to the sword. I think they're the strongest team left in the Europa League. I think they have nothing to fear in the FA Cup, but in the Premier League in particular, I think the other teams have difficult fixtures to play, and Liverpool's are not anything that they would have to worry about.
So just 2 brief things before we do move on. I find it interesting when people kind of mention the whole hard running thing, because it's like we don't learn our lessons.
Yeah.
What's a hard running?
Yeah, I
Would
agree.
you rather play West Ham or Burnley right now?
Okay.
Now, on the paper, you say I'd rather play Burnley, but Burnley have got a cause. So I'm not sure you would rather play Burnley. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know what a hard running is. And second of all, again, as you said, you're in the FA Cup and you're in the Europa League, which I think you'll go deep in both. That's the reason why I think you won't win the Premier League, because I think your squad might just get stretched a little bit too much in the last couple of months of the season. I think when it comes down to the last 2 months of the season, which we're kind of entering now, I think because you're across 3 competitions, that ultimately might prove too much. But we'll see.
I think the opposite is true. The quality of the kids coming through, Quanton at centre half, Bradley at right back,
They can carry
McConnell
through the
in
cups, do you
midfield.
think?
Exactly, and that basically takes away the pressure to rush back other players, like other clubs would normally do, like we would probably do, and put them in a position where they could be lost for a longer period of time. I think what is likely to happen is those young players, they're going to get valuable experience, they're going to continue with the momentum and that culture of winning that they're learning, and I don't think there's going to be a dip in quality. There hasn't been so far, and now people are saying, no Alisson, no problem.
Let's talk in 4 weeks' time. Let's talk in 4 weeks' time. I'm not so sure this party's going to last much longer.
You're going to move on, and you haven't told me about Arsenal. What do you think about the title race?
Just briefly, I'm leaning towards Manchester City, but that's only because of experience. I think we should not disrespect or underestimate pedigree, and having been there and done it, I think that counts for a lot.
So even though you've got the best defence,
I think we're the form team. I think if you look at form, it's pointing to us, right? And it's in our hands. If we go to Manchester City and win, we probably win the league.
all right,
Probably.
so let me ask you.
It's a big if, but
do you think you could go to Man City and win?
100%. 100%.
Why?
Well, one, because of form. We've got goals across the field. Defensively, we're solid. Why not?
Haaland, De Bruyne.
Yeah. Well, you said can we? You didn't say will we. You said can we win? I said we can win there.
Right,
I don't think it's laughable that we can win there. Will we win there? It's 3 weeks away. Let's see where we are in 3 weeks. What I will say before we do move on is if I'm Mikel Arteta, I'm doing everything in my power to ensure that Saka, Rice, Gabriel Magalhaes, Saliba, and there's one more, and Odegaard do not go to the international games over the next couple of weeks. I don't know what you got to do. You got to pull a little, whatever. But sorry, Gareth, they can't report, because I think at this point, if anything happens to Rice and Saka in particular, they could regret it. It's done before. It's been done before, Darren. You know it's been done before. You know what's got to be done. So I'm doing whatever I can to ensure that this time, the end of the break, I've still got my team.
What about if they want to go?
You're not going. You're not going. You're not going. You're not going. Sorry. You're not going. Sorry, Declan.
Really?
What? There's ways. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think the point is that if we're going to win this league, we've got to be perfect. And to be perfect, we need a full strength team.
Yeah, but the more they play, the better they become. The more battle hard.
I just think that the margins are fine. I just think any injury for 2 meaningless England games anyway. Why would you?
You did fall apart last season when Saliba wasn't available.
All right. Sorry, fall apart's a bit strong. Anyway, let's move on to our second discussion. Let's talk top 4 now, because I think that was interesting on Sunday as well. We saw Spurs beat up Aston Villa at Villa. I've always thought that Tottenham would get the fourth spot. I thought that for months. Even when they were going through an injury crisis and they had a bit of dip in form, I just think that they would come good. They've got no other cups to play. I think they're at the FA Cup. They're at all the cups. So they've got a clean run now to just do what they've got to do. I think they will get it. I always had concerns that Villa would, towards this part of the season, tail off as well. What's your stance on the game on Sunday and where that leaves both sides?
I'm surprised, actually.
Much as Villa are still 3 points ahead, I believe, but Spurs have got a game in hand.
I was quite surprised by the scale of the victory, I have to say, because I thought it'd be a tight game. Villa's home record is really good. Spurs' away record had not been that great. I think they'd won once in 6 away games in the Premier League up to that point. So I really did expect Villa to put them under pressure. I was surprised at how badly they collapsed, also by the loss of control from John McGinn, because he's now going to be out for 3 games. And I still wouldn't take anything for granted, because I remember in March 11 years ago when Tottenham were in a race for 4th place with Arsenal, and Spurs won, and Villas-Boas, the manager at the time,
talking loud after the game, loud. Breezy talk,
and he said it with his chest as well. Yeah, that
chesty
Arsenal in a negative spiral. And Arsenal beat Spurs to the Champions League by a single point.
Yeah.
So it's still too early. And we keep falling into these traps about making big predictions this early in these tight races where anything can happen. Key
early.
players could be lost.
It's not that early. It's 2 months to go. It's
early.
We're in the final third of the season now. It's not that early.
But there are so many twists and turns. And like you rightly said, there is no such thing as an easy running. Yeah, that you can't look at fixtures and say that's beatable, that goes win. Because Arsenal, they slipped up against West Ham last season. As they went for the title, they slipped up against Southampton.
No, but the basis of my opinion that Spurs get 4th isn't because I think they'll win, they'll beat certain teams. It's on the basis that I think they're in a groove now, and also I always thought Villa would blow up a little bit towards the back end of the season, coupled with, and this is why a lot of Arsenal fans aren't shedding too much tears about Unai Emery, because we saw firsthand that at this point of the season, he does tend to, especially domestically, he does tend to fall off. He does. He's a cup man. He's a
how did he get Villarreal into the Champions League?
I'm not saying he's always fallen off, but if you look at his career, there's a trajectory.
He won the league with PSG.
I can win the league with PSG, Darren. Come on,
don't get
come on.
Away.
The point I'm making is that if you look at a lot of his previous seasons, he does tend to fall off towards the back end of the season. And that might be because he goes too deep in the competitions that he's prioritising, i.e. the Europa Leagues. But this is what I predicted to happen, and I think it's going to start to happen.
First of all, it's hard to say that you're vindicated precisely because of what we've both been saying. There's 10 games to go. It's very, very early. Yeah. He could rebuild, having been taken apart at the weekend, and Spurs could easily let it go to their head. I don't think that will happen. I think Spurs will continue to be focused. I like what Ange Postecoglou said the other day when he said, listen, I'm not even targeting fourth place. I'm trying to rebuild this club to win things. And in the press conference, and justifiably so, the reporter was saying, yeah, but for you to get to that stage, you've got to get into the top four. If you're in the Champions League, you can acquire higher caliber players. And he says, no, I'm still not having it. And I could see what he was trying to do. He was trying to send a message to his players that fourth place isn't the limit of our ambition.
No.
So don't get hung up or go all in on this game. Let's treat it as just another stepping stone on the way to our objective down the line. And it worked, obviously, because they were able to play with a freedom and not get too tensed up. But I think as far as Villa are concerned, I still think their home record is very good in general terms. And I think that is going to help them to take this to the wire. It's too hard to call either way. And I've got a massive amount of respect for Unai Emery. Because I think his body of work is very, very underrated. Because people say he hasn't won things in English football, but you look at what he's done abroad, and you look at the way that he has taken a side that Steven Gerrard struggled with, and he's got that side galvanised. They've got no right to be in the top four, but it's because of him.
I agree.
And all that alchemy that he is able to bring to the table that they're in the mix.
I agree. He's done a great job. I think his CV is to be respected. I always, whenever it starts, everyone was, he signed Diaby, he signed this player. They're gonna title challenge. I was a bit like, whoa. They won't even get fourth for me, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think they will win the Europa. I think they'll win the Europa League conference. I think they'll win that competition, and that would be a great season for Aston Villa if they can finish top 7. That would be a good year for. You're looking at me like you don't agree. No,
it's the thing that sometimes we have in football while we talk about big ambitions for the big clubs, but the other clubs have to stay in their lane.
I didn't say they should. I just think they will. I think that's what will end up happening.
I think it will go to the wire, and I think that Villa will finish. If you were to ask me which of the two clubs will finish out of the top 4, I think Villa possibly might, but I think it will be very tight. But I think that he will continue building, just like Spurs, on this, and it will be so much tighter next season, that top 5.
Just finally, did we also see on Sunday why Ollie Watkins is a brilliant striker, but not quite in the elite category of strikers?
Yes and no. Because obviously when you're talking about elite, you find a way to be able to cause problems for the opposition team, even though your defence isn't playing that well. Set against that, it's the defence that cost Villa and obviously their leader, if you like, McGinn, rather than Watkins' inability.
He had one really good chance that I think an elite striker finishes in that first half. I think he's probably top 2 at the moment for candidate for Player of the Year. But I just think the talk about him going to an Arsenal is that miss for me was why I don't think he will go to a team like Arsenal. I just think I think Villa's his level, and that's no disrespect. I think he's in that top 4 category striker rather than a Premier League winning striker category. Am I being harsh?
Well, I think you said a lot of things there. That
so I'm being harsh, Darren.
I mean, I like him.
You can tell me if I'm being harsh.
I mean, you are being harsh. I think on one game as well. I mean, he's had a fantastic season.
He has, and I did say that. He's had a brilliant season.
Assists.
Yeah, no, I did say that he's my candidate for probably Player of the Year so far. But does he get a move to a top tier team?
I think he could.
You think he could?
He could. Yeah, I think. Listen, I remember many moons ago when Dwight Yorke was an Aston Villa striker, and he made the move to Manchester United, and I thought he was good, but I didn't think he was Manchester United good. Yeah, but he proved me wrong, massively so, and that could well be the case for an Ollie Watkins.
It's not bad comparison.
Before Unai Emery had his hands on Watkins, everyone thought he was a good striker at Brentford, but they didn't think he was a striker who could put up those numbers, the numbers he's putting up now in the Premier League, and he's doing that. And footballers surprise us all the time. And I think that if the right manager, it could even be under Emery, surrounded by even better players than the ones that are at Villa at the moment.
Finally and briefly, for England, Tony or Watkins?
I've been asking people this all the time. Personally, I would go with Tony, because I think Tony's aerial ability is better. I think Tony's got more variation to his game, and I think Tony from the penalty spot, his record's outstanding as well. But there's so much more to his game than that. For me, Tony.
Okay, let's now move on. Let's move away from sport. We did, as you know, we do talk. We try to talk about things beyond football and sport. Let's talk about politics now. We've got some papers here. Darren's brought in some props to try and judge up the show a little bit. And I like it. I respect it. I rate it. It's good. We are going through some of the news stories, so it makes sense. Probably the biggest story of the day, Darren, is one that I find very upsetting. I'm sure you do too. The MP for Hackney, Labour MP for Hackney. Just ironic because we're recording in the studio, in her homeland. Diane Abbott. Some comments that were made by a gentleman, I say gentleman in the loosest terms, Frank Hester, who's the biggest donor to the Tory party. He has given the Tory party £10 million over the last 12 months. Has made some comments about Diane Abbott in a meeting that he held. In this meeting, he said that he didn't hate all black women, but he said that seeing Abbott, who is Britain's, as we know, she's Britain's first black MP, makes her want to hate all black women.
Makes him want
to hate all black women because she's there on the telly box, is what he was talking about. And the reason why, for me, this is, so there's two things with these comments from this guy that I think we should explore. I think there's the reason why this is politically problematic, which I really want to hear your views on that. But the thing that I'll kick off on, which is why this is upsetting to me, is the personal. So Diane Abbott is, I think most people are aware, is the most abused MP in this country. I think there's some polls that have been done that say that she makes up, I think it's 38% on her own of all the abuse that's given to MPs. And at a time when we're hearing from MPs talk about fearing for their safety, depending on how they vote and their stance on the war in Israel and Palestine, and needing protection for that and being influenced, Diane Abbott has lived a life for many years where she has to worry about her safety. This is her daily life. Very few people seem to take interest in her safety, both psychologically and physically as well. And as a black woman, I have a black mum, I have black aunties, I have black female cousins, I have black female friends and black female colleagues. When I look at Diane Abbott, and the irony is I've got a relative that looks very similar to Diane Abbott, I see a relative, I see someone that could be my auntie. And to hear the words of this man, which are beyond foul for me, are really, really upsetting and really speaks to how I believe, this is my personal opinion, many people feel about black women generally, especially black women that are successful, influential, and proactive and are not meek and don't bow down. And I just feel like someone that has championed people like us in areas like this, I think it's a responsibility of people like me and yourself to stand up and talk for people like Diane Abbott, because as a black man, to hear that he not only is he shooting at Diane Abbott, Darren, he's spraying by proxy black women, he's spraying every black woman, and that for me is really, really, really foul. Now, I don't think this is, and this kind of leads into politics now, I don't think this is personally necessarily about this man. I think this is more about an issue within the Conservative Party and the naked language of which they're allowed to now get away with. These people aren't even hiding anymore their thoughts and feelings about particular communities and groups. They're just saying it out loud now. And that is the bigger issue. He for me is not the story in a weird way. It's the empowerment that they have to feel they can say these things out loud, which is the bigger issue for me. What was your reaction when you heard of what he said, and what does this say about the politics of the current government of the day?
Well, I brought the papers in here today because you can probably see it, and it looks horrific. The words on the page look horrific. The headline is self-explanatory. And the worst thing, the most heartbreaking thing about it is that not one single bit of it surprised me. We've talked on this very podcast before about the hatred, the prejudice that seeps from every pore of the government at the moment. They say it with their chest, they embolden other people to say that kind of thing with their chests. It's beyond the pale. There's a couple of things that I want to point out in relation to this. The first thing is that I'm waiting to see which TV or radio phone-in is going to be framed around what Frank Hester said, racist. Right? Now, to me, there is zero debate about the base level of what he has said.
So to cut you, I think that's a really important point, because what a lot of these TV programs and radio phone-ins will do is treat us like fools, and they would try and frame the conversation around that very question. Was what this man said racist? That's not the discussion.
No.
That shouldn't be the discussion, but they want to fill airtime by making us believe that it's a debate. Maybe it wasn't, and that's where we get into discussions around whether it was or wasn't. That's not the question. The question is, what does it say about the current government of the day, in my opinion? Sorry.
I know, but I will get that answer, but I do just want to make that point because it's so important. Please, please, please don't take part in any debate framed around the question, is what he said racist? Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Asian, whether you're whatever, everybody is in no doubt as to the base level of what has been said. And at a time, and we've talked about it on the podcast before, where members of parliament are concerned for their safety, for somebody of his influence to say that about the first black woman in the British Parliament is absolutely disgusting. I think what he said is misogynistic, it's racist, it's disgusting, it's inflammatory, and it sums up what the Conservative Party are now. And there is no hiding away from what he has said, the way it's been framed. He's not just talking about Diane, he's talking about every black woman. And honestly, to hear, there's one particular phone-in, and in the interest of fairness, I won't name it, but I listen to it quite regularly, and I've heard it frothing at the mouth about all sorts of things over, but however long, and it was strangely silent on this issue. And I was thinking to myself, shame on you, because this is not something that we should be bearing. This is something that we all should be coming together to condemn. I don't care what side of the political divide you are. When you are talking about the safety of individuals, high-profile individuals in this country, and you are talking about people being shot.
That's the bit that triggered me, that she should be shot. How dare you? How dare you? Who the hell are you? Who are you? Honestly, when I read that this morning, Darren, I was in the cab on the way here, and I had to stop and just think to myself, this must be a misquote, this must be a mistake, this must be... I was stunned. I was stunned that, forget even race for a second, the idea that you think someone should be shot, it's what are we doing here?
This is exactly
what
the
are we
point.
doing here?
And it will, all these people who, from all sides of the divide, and let's not kid ourselves, we've been on here the first show we did, we talked about the rise in anti-Semitism, the rise in Islamophobia, the rise in anti-black racism. And over the last couple of weeks, all three of those forms of discrimination have been leading the news agenda. Yeah. And in the case of this guy is a donor, one of the largest donors the government, to the Conservative Party. So the people running this country, they are taking the money of a guy who thinks high-profile black women should be shot. Just think about that for a moment. That's where we are. And I don't want to hear, is he right? I don't want to hear he wasn't being racist, he's not racist. I've seen MPs coming out since the quotes were published. And let's not kid ourselves, to run something like this, you have to put it to the individual concerned in its entirety. They have to have the right of reply. They have to know what you are alleging. There are legal reasons why it has to be done. And you have to have the ability to grasp what has been said about you and the way it's been framed. And obviously the Guardian will have gone through all of their legal checks and balances as far as it's concerned. And look, nothing about what has been said surprises me. All of it disgusts me. And we have MPs bending over backwards to try not to call this what it is. It's unfortunate, it's unacceptable, it's this, it's that, but they can't tell you why, because they don't want to call it what it is. They don't want to accept that some of the remarks are Islamophobic, some of the remarks are anti-black, all of the remarks are racist. They don't want to accept that they are presiding over a culture of xenophobia that is empowering the wider sections of the wider public to behave in a similar way. And thankfully, there are people from all sorts of demographics coming together to push back against this. White, black, Asian, whatever. Everybody's coming together to push back against this. But clearly we need to work harder. Clearly we need to exercise our power at the ballot box to make good decisions when the time comes for us to do that. And you know what I want to see? I want to see the leader of the opposition parties now stand up and call this what it is. Not just condemn the fact that they're taking the money, but condemn the fact that this is the culture of government that we have presiding over us. It's a cesspit at the moment, and one last point, because there are so many points to be made around this. But, you know, you and I have worked in this industry for a long time. We've known each other for a long time. And one thing that is so common about our industry when something like this comes up is that our industry tries to call it so many things other than what it is. It's racist. It's sexist. It's disgusting. And I don't want to see it framed in any other way. It's dangerous. It's inflammatory. It will put her safety at risk. It puts the safety of other black women at risk. And just as we were appalled at the Joe Cox situation, we should be equally appalled, probably if not more, because this is somebody high profile calling for it to happen. The Joe Cox thing happened out of the blue. This is somebody calling for this to happen. Where are we where we can move on and not actually scrutinize this and call for the government to be held over to account over this?
My final point would just be that I'm kind of on the fence as to whether how important this actually is. But when we finish this recording, half of me expects to see on all the news platforms, you mentioned Kemi Badenoch, come out and speak on this as a black woman herself and to condemn this strongly herself. But the other half of me thinks to myself, so what? Even if she does, so what? It doesn't, what does that really matter? I don't know if the optics of seeing a black woman that's on the opposing party to Diane Abbott condemning this is important and necessary. And if Kemi Badenoch can see that this is not about politics, this is beyond politics. This is about people. This is about what's right and what's wrong. But then a lot of black people that I know that are not in line with the Tory party would say, well, she's arguably done more damage to black communities than anybody, so why would it really matter?
Listen, but the thing is, they're calling for anybody to be shot. I mean, where are we when that's a part of our discourse? And again, this is not about politics. Had he called for a white woman to be shot, had somebody on the left called for a Jewish woman to be shot, I'd be equally as disgusted and appalled, because that should not be where we are as a society, as a country, as human beings. It should not be where we are. And I am just... I started off by saying it doesn't surprise me, because we've heard so much that's beyond the pale from members of this government, the way that they've demonized people of colour, male, female, they've dehumanized people of colour. And I wouldn't say but, I'd say and this follows on from that, but this has to be the worst thing I have seen for a long time. And if we as a society, as an industry, don't come together and say, look, we have to condemn this in the strongest possible terms, then I don't know where we are.
I'm with you. All right, let's move on to our final section now. Let's go on to Hugh's called this Talk Me or Talk. That's how Hugh says it. Hugh says it really English, isn't he? He says, talk me or talk. Start me or talk. Do you know what I mean?
You're far better.
It's your week, so this is where...
It's always my week.
What do you mean? I did the first week, so it can't be always your week. This is where one of the three of us or whoever's on the show will bring something that's not sports related or politically related. Something that's in the news, out there. Normally something a bit light-hearted, a bit fun. What you bring to the table this week, Mr. Lewis?
Well, you guys can't see Dan and Amy behind the microphone. They're behind the cameras, but we were talking about this beforehand, and it's very engaging, so I'm going to just bring it into the podcast as well.
Let's go.
The picture, the Kate-spiracy.
It's always called Kate-spiracy.
Well, there's so many things it's called.
Kate-spiracy. I like that.
For a long time, and maybe I'm just grumpy, but I called it a silly bit of nonsense. But it was just, it's the Kate-spiracy. But the thing that strikes me the most about it is that Meghan Markle must be looking at this whole thing thinking, thank goodness I got away. Thank goodness I distanced myself from it. Thank goodness I'm in a situation where I don't have to care.
So for those who don't know, sorry, those are literally disengaged in all this. Just you explain what the story is.
Right, so there had been lots of questions around the whereabouts of Kate, the Princess of Wales, because she hasn't been seen in public for quite some time. And a picture was issued, a Mother's Day picture of her and the children. But four of the world's biggest picture agencies refused to run the picture, and they recalled it after issuing it initially, and it had been used by some publications. And they issued a kill notice, and that's very rare for that to happen, but they issued a kill notice where they had noticed certain things about the picture had been photoshopped or manipulated digitally. And they said, look, this should not be in the public domain. And that's led to lots of questions around who issued the picture and why, who manipulated it and why. And it's intensified the questions as to Kate's whereabouts, her health, the state of their marriage, and all sorts of speculation that cannot, I should stress, be substantiated in this podcast one way or another. And so I don't want to add to any of that for you at all.
Well done, Darren. Well done.
I saw one particular show which blew my mind, which said that looking at the metadata of the picture, they were able to tell what time it had been taken, where it had been taken, and when it had been manipulated. And I just thought it's time for me to turn over to Antiques Roadshow. Honestly,
I think because I like everyone else, I'm sure, just kind of turned on Twitter, Sunday night actually, I think it was, and just saw this whole thing blowing up in the WhatsApp groups. It's like, I didn't know what was going on. My only takeaway on this is that if they are trying to hide something, the thought process that I gather is that it must be something that's quite serious that's going on. Now, as you mentioned, she's not been seen for a while, and we know that she had a procedure or she had some health issues, and we don't know how that's ended. We don't know what the state of current play is with Kate. But if they've gone to these lengths to doctor this picture, you have to assume that it's something quite serious.
When you say they, I mean, officially, the statement that was issued subsequently, in the statement, I'm going to word this carefully, in the statement that was issued subsequently, the Princess of Wales apologised, and to paraphrase what she said, she tried to have a go at enhancing the picture and failed miserably. Now, it's up to you whether you believe that.
Take from that
or
what
not. But if you do, then I've got a bridge I want to sell you.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go back to your article though, because you wrote a piece on this, going back to Meghan and how you think you're surmising that the article basically leans into the idea that the scrutiny and the level of control over your life is so much that you think that Meghan kind of got a sense of that and was like, nah, not for me. I'm out.
And within the piece that I wrote, I was talking about the fact that if you think about all families, especially bigger families, they all, I think, have at least one person, maybe in the family of origin or maybe even in the extended family, who says,
He pulls away.
just because you guys are doing like this doesn't mean I have to. Or they marry someone that the family don't approve of. And so they say, you know what, we're going it alone. I love her or I love him. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And we're going to take our kids and we're going to go. And everyone expects them to come crawling back. And they can say, if you're going to go, leave the money that we gave you behind. They go, all right,
I'm out.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Or they say, all right, if you're going to go, don't live in the house that we gave you. And they say, all right, we'll do it ourselves.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what they're doing. They've gone away. And it must be so liberating to be away around friends, around people that care for them and love them, and see the dumpster fire taking place here. And do you know what? I say that with a degree of sympathy for Kate, you know, because I think if she has had this procedure and she's recovering and, you know, it might be that psychologically this whole thing is having such an impact. Imagine picking up the papers, you're at home trying to recover from a procedure, or looking at the TV or listening to the radio and seeing yourself everywhere. And I don't say that to necessarily criticize anybody, because there are lots of people doing a very honest job of covering the whole thing, as they should. But there are lots of people on the fringes opining on her and living off trashing certainly Meghan, and as far as Kate is concerned, sort of monitoring every cough and spit. And that can't be, you know, imagine Mrs. Jarrett-Bryan recovering from a procedure and you're seeing someone you've never met going on television saying, yeah, and I know that she'll be thinking this and she'll be thinking that. Do you know what I mean?
You know.
Exactly.
How you know.
Exactly. This is where we are. And I just think that, yes, clearly there are pictures, there are questions to
about the
answer
photo.
around a photo.
But the wider issue is people's well-being, and whether the scrutiny that comes with being a royal is becoming too much.
It must just be so suffocating. And these are young people, you know, born in the 21st century.
Yeah,
who just want to have a life and don't want to be suffocated. And, you know, Meghan left, and since leaving, and along with Harry, that they feel free. They feel a freedom that they previously clearly hadn't had. And they've documented it and they've talked about it and everything. And
they're living their best life, as the kids say.
Absolutely, they're living their best life. Absolutely. So you're my age.
I know. Whenever you add when the kid, that's what the kids say. You know you're of a certain age. When you say
Uncle Jordan,
you've aged yourself. Let's say that. Sorry, I caught you again.
But no, listen. That's my basic view. That looking at the whole thing from afar, it just must be the case that Meghan is thinking to myself, thank goodness I trusted my judgment. Yes, it was ugly. Yes, it was messy. Yes, it was painful for both of our families. But ultimately, I'm free.
I have my freedom, yeah, for real. Thank you very much, Darren. That was fun. You are now free. Let's now get out of here. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're across socials, Twitter and Instagram. Give us a follow, give us a share, leave us a comment, and let us know what you want us to talk about. Keep it clean, keep it nice, and within the realms of sports, politics and popular culture, and we might well get to it on the next pod. Big love to Hugh. Hope he gets well soon.
Yeah,
I'm sure back next week, and we'll see you next week too. Peace.